You're listening to Back Pew Convos.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Sal. And this is the podcast God wants you to listen to.
So if you want to remain in God's will, have a sit down.
Grab a beverage of your choice.
And have a listen.
You're welcome. Of course, with the caveat that if anything needs to be cut out, you're the producer. So it's just more work for you, buddy.
I know. I've been kind of just not doing that and just kind of whatever makes it in,
I don't hate that. I mean, I do say a lot of stupid things that need to be edited out, but that's just part of it, man. Like, the people listening to the show at this point, however many episodes we are in, should know I'm going to say something stupid. In the course of this recording, I'm going to say multiple stupid things.
Not me. I'm only saying smart things all the time.
I probably do say more stupid things than you, but only, I feel like, not because I'm stupider than you, it's just because I'm a little more loose-lipped than you with it.
Perhaps you're more of a risk taker.
Yeah.
You're willing to climb out on that limb.
Exactly. I think that's fair.
Yeah. See?
Yeah.
Let me try this. No other sounds, okay? Let's just see what happens.
Yeah, man!
I say that because I noticed that again the sound pads worked for like an episode and then didn't anymore. But I'm wondering if we talk at any point while that's playing, it filters that out.
Yeah, I got you.
So I guess if we're ever going to use these sound pads, there cannot be any talking.
So what you're saying is the bleep button is useless.
Basically.
So I'm going to have to stop cussing now.
I guess.
Fine.
I could add them in post-production, I reckon.
You could, but why?
I'm not gonna.
Why?
I'm not gonna. Also, that means I can't do the whole intro thing with the drums and the applause.
Yeah. We could. You just have to be quiet.
But then I can't do the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen. You know what? All of a sudden, that made me think about wrestling and the whole Michael Buffer, like, let's get ready to rumble. And then I realized that Hulk Hogan died today. And that freaking bummed me out, man.
True. Mr. Nanny.
Hulk Hogan has a... Hulk Hogan has sort of the later part of his life. He got a bad earned himself. I don't want to say he got, as if he didn't earn it. He earned himself a bad reputation.
Right.
With some of the, stuff that he said that was recorded, and obviously I don't condone that, but he was a hero of mine as a child. Like I'm a huge wrestling, grew up watching wrestling all through the late 90s. That was, I've got a Macho Man Randy Savage tattoo on my leg, right? 90s wrestling was my jam. And so there was no bigger part of late 90s, well, really all the 90s wrestling than Hulk Hogan. And so
Truth.
Yeah, it just feels sad. And I guess in a weird way, I kind of am able with those childhood heroes like that to separate the character from the human. Even if he was not a good person, which I don't know, I don't want to judge people. I know that I don't like what he said and was recorded, and why people, kind of turned heel on him. I get it,
right?
But to me, that's the difference between his who he was as a person versus his character, Hulk Hogan. He wasn't Hulk. He was Terry Bollea. But to me, he was always Hulk Hogan, which is that mythical character. It was the character he played in the ring. So, yeah, bums me out, bro. It's just another one, So many of them. Which, I mean, he lived to be 70. So many of them died young.
Right.
But,
yeah, I was not big into wrestling as a child, but I did like a lot of his 90s movies that he made.
Thunder Lips?
Right, he was played Thunder Lips in Rocky 3. He was played in Mr. Nanny.
Yeah.
Suburban Commando.
Suburban Commando, yeah. No Holds Barred.
What's barred? Yeah. He also played. Did you ever see Thunder in Paradise?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, he was in that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I know him from. Is all the movies.
Yeah. I mean, he was a hero for me when I was little. I had all the, like I ate up the whole take your vitamins and say your prayers. Like I had the Hulk Hogan's vitamins. I had a little. I remember uh, having a camera, that takes like still pictures because this was again the '90s. But it was like a Hulk Hogan branded camera, and like so it took actual film. Again, this was before digital cameras, but it at the bottom corner of every picture that you would take, it would have like Hulk Hogan doing his little like showing his muscles or whatever. It was pretty. Like I took so many pictures with that. I wish I still had that actually, but
Hmm. I didn't know that existed.
yeah, I was into it, man. I loved it so much, but
Yeah.
it's just something else that's crazy about that to me is like Hulk Hogan lived to be 71 years old. But he was like his whole life and career was based around like fitness and bodybuilding and being like the peak physical specimen. And he died at 71, but earlier this week, Ozzy Osbourne passed away at 76 years old. Like that's the crazy thing, right? Like it's now I realize that Hulk Hogan he took steroids and was hard on his body too, but
Right.
I mean, he wasn't doing well, to my knowledge, at least. He
Right.
wasn't
I was gonna
doing
say
hard.
maybe.
He wasn't
Maybe
doing
was.
hard drugs and living on like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Possibly.
maybe he was. I don't know. But Ozzy Osbourne certainly had more of a reputation for that.
Right.
I mean, I even think he outlived. To be honest, I'm pretty sure Ozzy Osbourne lived to be older than Richard Simmons,
Hmm.
which has to make you call into question the whole diet and exercise thing. I mean,
Or at least sweating to the oldies.
yeah, true.
Maybe sweating to the oldies isn't the way to go.
Yeah, that's it's been quite a week actually for like celebrities because Hulk Hogan passed, Ozzy Osbourne passed. Um, I'm at a loss for his name, but he was Theo on I think it was
Oh, Malcolm Jamal Warner, I
yeah,
think is his name.
Michael Jamal Warner. He drowned this week,
Yeah, I saw that.
so it's been a rough one.
Yeah.
Actually, I've seen a lot of stuff. I haven't seen so much about Hulk Hogan, which that just happened today, but seen a lot of chatter online about Ozzy Osbourne. Some of it really bummed me out. Some of it doesn't bum me out. It's kind of weird how the things that bum you out weigh on you more than the things that don't bum you out don't bum you. Like it doesn't have the same weight, you know what I mean? Like even though they're equally because like I would see a lot of posts from a lot of people that I'm friends with on Facebook or follow, like and when I say friends on Facebook, they're not necessarily people I know in real life, but I'm talking about like people within the Christian world, that are authors or pastors that have names within, like
Mm-hmm.
that people who watch the show would probably recognize. And a
Right.
lot of those people are posting like which of course we tend towards grace and universalism, like and so most of the people I follow do as well. And so like a lot of the posts about Ozzy Osbourne would be like, that he's in the presence of Jesus or whatever, he's with God.
Right.
He's alluding to the fact that like he's not in hell burning for eternity. He's you know
Right.
and that should and it does encourage me that message is getting out there, but then man, don't answer the comments. The comments. Like just seeing some of the comments that people say, I'm like, eh, is there any wonder? Like, is there any wonder that we're not drawing more people into this? Like, why would they want to be a part of this? Do you hear what you're saying? Do you see what you're saying? Like, but for whatever reason, those negatives weigh me down more than the positives of the people who made the post in the first place, and I don't know why that is. It shouldn't be like that, but
Yeah. I think that one reason why people push back against stuff like that is because they aren't I think at least for now, at least until, well, I say until now as if I'm just positive that this Christian universalism thing is just going to become more and more the norm. But
You're full of hope. What can I say?
I mean, yeah, I kind of am. So, but like until that happens, I do think, at least for now, folks that are going to speak about that ought to, may have to immediately explain what that does and doesn't mean. Because I think that like a lot of people will hear stuff like that, even just what I even had the thought whenever you just said we tend towards grace and universalism, and then you tell the story about reading the comments from the post, and the
Yeah.
post was about him being in heaven or was in the presence of Jesus. Um, People that have a strong bent towards the justice of God will hear that and be offended by it,
Right.
because they don't see the justice of God being played out in that. They have this
Right.
image of Ozzy Osbourne,
The Prince of
the
Darkness.
Prince of Darkness, just sort of like the instant that he, however we want to imagine that this works,
Right.
like he just appears in whatever the afterlife experience is, and he's like got a lollipop in his mouth, like sitting in the lap of Papa God, and like he's just like there's no accountability for anything that's,
I know. I
you know
mean,
what I mean?
yes, but, and I know that like you're just like being the devil's advocate or whatever. Like, what's the word? Is that the right phrasing? Devil's advocate.
I think.
Yeah. Anyway,
Don't call me the devil.
don't call me Shirley. But like it. Yes, I understand what you're saying, but it frustrates me that it's not like a. That's such a like. I'm trying to like phrase this in an is the easiest way possible. That's such a shallow way, I would say, of looking at justice and looking at even just life. Like, to me, that is really just not thinking critically about like the life that we're living and the like. And this always comes back to me, which is sort of for me, which is sort of like an overarching theme that I always come back to in conversations like this. But it's like, if you really think that we're going to be that's the standard that the all-knowing God is going to judge us on, is by what we believe, when we have no control over what we believe. We can't control that. You believe what you believe. And I've said this to you before, but I'll say it to everybody watching this. Like, if you think that that you can control what you believe, and you believe that Jesus is God, then quit right now. In this instant, start believing that Thor is the true God. You can't. That's not how belief works. You can't decide what to believe and what not to believe. So if that's the standard that God is judging us on, well, hell, that's not justice either. That is not justice. That is evil, in my opinion. So,
Right. So I think that more so than, I mean, there's probably are some people that think that, but whenever what I meant by justice was just like you answering for the things that you've said and done in this life.
right, I understand that, but that is linked inextricably to your beliefs about things, right? Like, if you don't, and I guess there are caveats to that, because there's a difference between being an entertainer like Ozzy Osbourne, who portrays a character that is
Right.
the Prince of Darkness, versus somebody like Dennis Rader, the BTK killer, who is
Right.
literally a Prince of Darkness. Like,
Right.
that's a little bit different. Like, I
Yes.
see the desire for feeling some need for justice there, especially if you're someone who's personally impacted by somebody like the BTK killer. But to judge someone like Ozzy Osbourne on that, who is portraying a character, I mean, if the people that are judging him are doing so based on what they perceive his beliefs and the actions that are obviously affected by his beliefs, like if he believed the same thing that these people believed, he wouldn't have been doing that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, that's linked directly to belief, in my opinion.
I don't know. I was thinking about that a little bit today, and I don't know what I think about that actually.
I think so, because I think if you act, I think you can say you believe something, but if what you say you believe doesn't affect your actions, then you don't really believe what you say you believe.
Maybe.
I think on a surface level, you maybe even have convinced yourself you believe it. But if it doesn't affect your actions in any way, do you really actually believe it? Like
I don't
if
know.
you truly believe in an eternal hell where you're going to be sent tortured for all of eternity, if you really believe that in your soul, would you do anything to avoid that? Obviously. Like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's an overgeneralization, but to me it seems pretty clear.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like I said. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that I disagree.
Right, I understand.
I'm just saying it's something I've been thinking about. I have actually thought about that a little bit today. Like, what got me thinking about that actually was the fact that, like, you can. I do think it's true. And again, this doesn't negate what you're saying. It could actually be just an example of what you're saying, more so than a negation of it. But, like, I do think that some people could have. Well, no one has perfect theology, but, like, you could have completely and totally orthodox beliefs and live like a horrible person.
But I mean, yeah, and you said this maybe is just an example of what I was saying, but yeah, that would be my, like, does that person actually hold orthodox beliefs?
I don't know.
Which,
I mean,
we're not, we can't judge what's in somebody's heart, but we could, to use Jesus's words, you shall know them by their fruit.
right.
What fruit is being, like,
Yeah.
if you're not producing good fruit, do you actually believe what you say you believe?
Maybe they believe that they believe what they say they believe.
That's what I'm saying. I think they maybe have convinced themselves they believe it, or they tell themselves, or they convince everybody else. But if it's not affecting, if it's not producing fruit, if it's not actually affecting the way you live your life, personally, I have to ask, that's the way I judge like, when I'm looking at myself, what do I truly believe?
But if you believe that you believe that, do you believe it?
Not if it's not affecting your actions. No, and in serious, like, I'm. It's a good question, but I mean what I say there, because what I mean is that I don't think people actually think through what they say they believe. Like, it's one thing to say, "Oh, uh, I believe that if you have to believe these certain things to go to heaven, otherwise you're going to burn in hell for all of eternity." I think that most people who have said that have not actually sat down and really thought about the implications of that. Have really thought, like, what does it mean to believe that? And so, like, it's easy to say you believe it when you haven't actually thought through the implications of it. Because there are a lot of things you would say, I believe that. But then somebody who's thought the downstream implications of it, well, then, okay, do you believe this? No. Do you believe this? No. What about this? No. Well, then you don't believe the first thing, because all that leads to all these things you say you don't believe in.
Right. But if you but you having I think what that would mean though is that anyone who hasn't thought through anything that they claim doesn't actually believe anything. I don't know that that would say that. Like, if we're gonna make it dependent upon, like, and now I don't, as far as, like, them them believing it, I don't know that we could say that they don't believe it. I think that we could say that they don't understand what they claim to believe, but I think that that might be different than saying that they don't believe it.
Maybe. To be honest with you, I haven't. This is not something that I've thought about, because this is in no
Yeah.
way relevant to anything that we talked about talking about tonight.
It's just something that came up today when I was, because I think that, like,
So all that stuff just came right off the tip of the tongue, right off the top of my head. So
right. Because, like, I do wonder, like, if, because I know people, I knew that, like, when I did believe in eternal conscious torment, I mean, it's easy for me to say now in hindsight that I don't know if I ever believed it, but in the moment, dadgummit, man, I believed it within my own self, within my own
yeah,
mind. Like, there was no convincing me you could not have convinced me I didn't actually believe it.
See, I would have said
You know what I mean?
I would have said, yeah, I do know what you mean, and I respect that. I think I would describe it the other way. I would say that I thought I believed it.
And maybe that is it. I don't know.
Because I don't know that I ever like. I mean, maybe I did. Maybe I'm trying to look on back on my own past with rose-colored glasses. I don't know. Maybe I really did believe it, but in hindsight, looking back at it, I don't know if I ever actually believed that. I knew it was what I was supposed to believe. I know that's what I was told was true, and like I affirmed it. But like, and then what I really believed, like to be totally fair, and this should come as no surprise to you. That's what I've been doing a whole lot of lately. Actually, is like, is that what you believe? Is that what you ever really believed? Like, like I've really been trying to address my own beliefs like that because, I mean, belief is an interesting topic.
Yeah.
Beyond just the whole idea that you can't, which is always what I come back to when people want to talk about we're saved by our own belief, our own faith. Like you can't control what you believe. That's literally the most unjust version of God I can imagine, to like judge us based on something that we have no control over. That's insanity to me.
So maybe you can have control to the extent that you can educate yourself to the point where you alter beliefs.
I think that you can
Maybe.
evolve your beliefs, and I mean but I still don't think you can control your beliefs. What I mean by that is like kind of the example I gave. I can't just
Can't choose.
choose what to believe and what not to believe. But to your point, a lot of my beliefs have evolved lately because of my study, because of the things I've been reading and thinking through and listening to and all that. My beliefs have evolved lately, you know. So, but I didn't choose. Like, to be honest with you, I didn't choose to believe any of the stuff that I currently believe. Like, a lot of times I would go down this road. It's kind of funny. This relates back to the broader theme that we started the show with, deconstruction. But when I started down this road, it wasn't like I was unhappy with where I was at currently in my theological journey. It was like, well, I just want to, you know what? I want to screw all this up.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was like my study, the things I was listening to and reading in my study and thinking deeply about the topics come from a desire to know more. And then,
Yeah.
but then once your foot's in the door, I think a term that we've used is once you see something, you can't unsee it. Like
Right.
I don't know what to do about that, but point being, it wasn't a conscious decision. It's just,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah. So like I don't know. I was just thinking about I have said in the past that I don't know if I ever really believed in eternal conscious torment, and maybe that is true.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I really think also that think that in my own for myself, I think I have maybe at times downplayed the real seriousness of our gone wrongness. Like it's entirely possible that I am just selfish enough to where I lived with and really believed this, but I'm so self-centered and so selfish I just didn't care, or
Right.
not that I don't know that I would say I didn't care, but it wasn't like because I've said before on here that like if anyone really believed in eternal conscious torment, they would be out of their minds going door to door, like
Yeah.
it,
There's no way you would have kids.
right,
How
yeah,
would you have children?
yeah,
Knowing that they could suffer an eternity in hell. Why would you do that? That's
right,
insane.
right. And so, yeah, maybe I didn't believe it. Maybe that is right. Maybe I just never believed it. Maybe anyone that isn't out of their minds that says they believe it, maybe they really just don't actually believe that. Maybe that is true. Or maybe we're just screwed up, man. And that's why we need
Yeah,
saving.
it is very possible that we're just screwed. I mean, when I think back to my relationship and the evolution of my thinking on hell, like when I would have claimed to believe in hell as a place of eternal conscious torment, like I was all the time scared and worried that I was going to go there, but never did I think about anybody else going there.
Right.
Never. I said the sinner's prayer 1,000,000,000 times in my life because I wanted to be dang sure I wasn't going, but I wasn't out. To your point, I wasn't going out of my mind. I wasn't preaching to nobody.
You didn't get tracks and hand them out at
No,
high
I
school.
wasn't. Like I never even considered the fact that someone else could go to hell.
Yeah.
but I knew I wasn't going.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe it's because I'm a selfish piece of trash. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I really, that is something like I said, that's just something I've been thinking about a little bit today, as far as like when I say I believe this, and when someone else says they believe that, do they actually believe that? And if they do believe, like, do they, if they understood the implications of all of that, would they actually believe it?
And let's
All of that.
and let's throw another wrench in this conversation, because one of the things that I had often thought about with belief is like, belief is almost never 100% in or 100% out. You know what I'm saying? It's always like, or at least in my opinion, it seems like it's always like, I think I believe, like, if we are going to ask you about a topic, are you all the time just like 100% believe this? And then, like, if you're presented to some other data that causes you to question that, do you just flip from 0 to 100 automatically? You're like, no, I don't believe in that anymore. Like, that's not really how belief works. You sort of, you think through these things, like, yeah, I think I believe this. I'm pretty sure I believe this. And then you'll read something else and you're like, I don't know, maybe I believe it. Like, so I was always sort of in this, like, when I believed that you were going to be judged by what you believed, it was almost like, well, like, what's the percentage? Do I have to be like just above 50%? Do I have to half believe, a little more than half believe? That's more belief than unbelief.
Right.
Or do I have to be 100%? Does it have to be sold out, right? Like, there could be
Right.
no traces of doubt in your mind. Like, that's where the conversation gets a little wonky, because it's like,
Yeah. What all of this thinking that I did on belief today really led me into a place of thinking, I don't even know if we know what it means to believe anything. I don't
yeah,
know if we even know what that means truly to believe something.
I think that for once, I'm going to agree with you.
It would be like a for once lately, it seems like.
Well, and I will say that, like, even the way that we use the term belief is very individualized, because a lot of times when me and
Right.
you are having our discussions, our private discussions, like, I'll tell you this is what I believe, and it's not a lie. That is what I believe if you ask me today. But I'm always studying and learning and thinking through this stuff. Like, you ask me tomorrow, I might not believe that,
I
and that
hope
doesn't
you don't believe tomorrow what you believe today.
and that doesn't mean I'm wishy-washy like that. No, I have a reason for believing the things that I believe, but
Right.
all I mean is that I'm not. It's not like I've planted my flag and saying I've got it all figured out. I'm done. This is
Right.
what I believe, and I'm sticking to it. Like, I'm open to changing my mind all the time. Like,
Right.
I'm always trying to learn more and listen to more and read more, and my mind is always on 10 different topics at once, running a million miles an hour. I'm always thinking about something. So,
Won't.
and it seems like it's gotten worse lately, unfortunately.
Do you watch a lot of reels and TikToks and stuff like that? Does that occupy a lot of your time during the day?
No, I wouldn't say it occupies a lot of my time. Usually I almost never watch reels. I usually my video medium of choice is TikTok, but I usually only watch it once a day. Just depend, like, in the afternoon, almost never at work, mostly just because I don't have any good service at work. Like, the videos won't play, they buffer. But when I get home, sitting on the couch, not doing anything, yeah, I mean, I'll scroll through TikToks for just depends on the day. Some days I won't even log on. Some days I'll watch an hour or two. Just depends.
I was just curious because I actually thought about you today. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about well, it was actually that James Tellerico
Yeah, yeah,
that was on Joe Rogan recently, and I think they were talking about long form media like that. And I think he mentioned James Tellerico mentioned that there was. I think he said that there had been studies done that show like if you spend a lot of time on like TikTok and like those little short
yeah,
videos, it affects your attention span. I know that you told me before, like your mind wanders too much whenever you're trying to listen to podcasts and
yeah.
stuff. And that's what I thought about you whenever he said that. And I was like, I wonder if Sal watches a lot of TikTok.
Now, my mind's been like that ever since we were kids. So it's before TikTok, before Facebook, before MySpace, even. Like, it's.
Right.
And when I say my mind wanders, it's not like a mouse, like, here, there, like, just a million different random thoughts. It's usually like like, I'll be thinking about a conversation that me and you had, right? Like, I'll go to the track to run and I'll put on a podcast and I'm starting to listen to the podcast, but then they'll say something that triggers maybe conversation that me and you
Right.
had recently had or something, and then my mind starts replaying that and thinking about different, the different thing that we would talk about, and then the next thing I know, 20 minutes has passed and I didn't hear a single thing they said on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that to happen more and more for me, especially like because when I run, that used to be my time to like really zone out and listen to podcasts. That was the one time, because the kind of work that I do, I can't really pay attention to videos or podcasts like what I would like to be able to. I end up missing too much just focusing on work. But the running thing was the one time that I had, but now my mind is just constantly thinking about stuff, all the time, thinking about these topics that me and you talk about mostly. I mean,
Yeah.
and part of that's just the situation I'm in. I mean, I think I've used the term deconstruction with you lately. Like I felt like I've went through another deconstruct. That's not that I went through it and have come out the other side. I'm in the midst of another deconstruction, unfortunately. Well, unfortunately, fortunately, I don't know. We'll see. But
Depends on where you end up, I guess.
is there ever an ending? I guess the only
Yeah, I don't
time to
know.
say where you end up is when you take your last breath, I suppose. And who knows? Maybe that's not even the ending.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that there is a continual growth, a continuing to deepen your understanding.
There can be. Caveat that there can be.
I
A
think there
continue.
should be.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah. But yeah, like to your point, that it doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes yeah, I don't know. That's the only problem that, and this isn't new. I said this back whenever we were talked about deconstruction at the very beginning of the show, um, back in episode 1. But like, I do think that because we talked about the need for reconstruction back then, like I do think that reconstruction is necessary. Really, I still believe that. And I think that once you reconstruct, it doesn't stop. Like, to your point, like what you were saying earlier, I don't know that like you ever stop in that sense, but I think once you reconstruct, you ought to be continually growing and educating yourself more and learning more and trying to understand more deeply what you have reconstructed. Not that you shouldn't be open to changing your mind about certain things that you have reconstructed, but yeah,
Right.
like that's been my own experience. Like,
I can't disagree with that as somebody who is in the midst of it
right,
currently.
that's been my own experience. Like, I wouldn't say I've been through a second deconstruction at any point, but I will say that I have gotten a much deeper understanding of the things that I said I believed in the beginning,
Yeah.
which is part of why I was thinking about the whole, like, that what do you believe, what you don't you believe, like just because I couldn't explain something, I don't know, 2 years ago, that I can explain way better now, just because I have better language now to explain something that I said I believed back then doesn't necessarily mean that I didn't believe it then.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or does it? I don't know.
Well, I mean, you believe in the Trinity, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain it?
Better than I could have 2 years ago.
Right. But the point being,
But no, I
you
can't.
can't explain it. So, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, to your point, I don't think that I wouldn't say you don't believe in the Trinity.
Right. Yeah. Which goes back to like what we were saying. Like, do you have to actually be able to
I,
explain this and understand it fully to?
I don't know that you have to be able to explain it, but if you truly believe it, I think it does change the way you live and change the way you see the world, and it produces fruit. Like I think
Yeah.
it does. You know what I mean? That was kind of my original point. It's like if you truly actually do believe something, I think it has to produce fruit. Otherwise, you're just giving it lip service. And maybe it's more than that. Maybe you actually do believe that you believe it, as you put it. But I don't know how convinced. I mean, maybe to your point, maybe we're just that screwed up because I feel like most people know smoking cigarettes can lead to probably it's going to kill you if you do it for long enough, but people do it anyway.
Right.
I mean, I know that drinking alcohol is not good for you, and I do it anyway because I like it.
Right.
I know it'll
Yeah.
probably kill me someday, but what am I going to do? you know?
Right. It's the same with like basically anything. Like
Fast food. I mean,
almost everyone I know is overweight. I mean, well, I know a lot of people that aren't, but you know what I mean.
take it easy. I am overweight, but I can run a marathon any day I want to.
But you know what I mean. Like
Oh yeah, for
obviously,
sure.
like the way that a lot of us eat, even people that I know that aren't overweight, some of the just because you're not overweight doesn't mean that you don't eat like trash.
Right.
You know.
That's what I actually mentioned that to my doctor the last time I was there because I mean, I'm quite a bit overweight. Like I'm 280 ish. Like I don't know, I haven't weighed in a couple months, but last time I weighed, I was 265, and I know I've gained I have to have gained 10 pounds, so I'm at least I'd say 275 right now. I mean, that's overweight. Like how many 80-year-olds do you see walking around that weigh 280 pounds, 275 pounds? Not many.
I don't know that I've
Like
ever
I'm
seen any.
unless I can actually get this weight off, I'm probably not making it that far. Like I just know that. Even though I'm in great shape. My resting heart rate's in the mid 40s. I can run as far as I want to, and not just run, but I'm probably stronger than most of the people listening to this too. Like I can, bench press a lot, squat a lot, deadlift a lot. Like I'm still strong. I run. I'm in good shape for somebody my size. So was Hulk Hogan, and he only lived to be 71 because being that big just isn't good for your heart. Like we aren't as human beings designed to be that big.
Right. Yeah.
But we do it anyway.
So Jesus wasn't 6'5", 300 pounds of pure muscle.
I doubt that. As
Okay.
somebody who fasted,
Okay.
If as somebody who likely fasted for 40 days, as it's written in Scripture, then
Poor first century Palestinian Jew under Roman occupation
right.
probably didn't have a ton of resources, ton of food laying around.
There's not a lot. To be fair, we don't know much about anything about what he ate. I mean, he ate. I think the most that we have recorded of him eating is after he died.
He's definitely eating more after he dies than before, I think. Yeah. So that's funny.
Even at the Last Supper, he had a piece of bread and some wine. Like,
yeah.
now he probably actually did have a traditional Passover meal, but it's just not recorded. Like, we don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. I know he refused a meal whenever the disciples returned, whenever he was talking to the Samaritan woman, or
Yep.
at the well.
Yeah.
Woman at the well.
It did say that he was called a glutton and that he was accused of eating with the sinners. So we know he must have eaten, and you don't usually that's always been my argument for people that want to argue that Jesus didn't drink alcohol. Like you don't get called a drunkard unless you're drinking. Like in my opinion, you don't get called a glutton if you're not eating. You don't get called a drunkard if you're not drinking. It's just not that doesn't make sense to me personally.
Right. So yeah, he must have been eating and drinking. But still,
stick that in your peace pipe and smoke it.
He was not.
You prudes.
He wasn't Jesus like those T-shirts that Phil sent us today. He didn't look like that. I can guarantee that.
Pretty sure about it. No.
That was TRT Jesus. That was Deca Jesus.
Protein was a delicacy. I mean, it still kind of is, but we have a lot more access to it then. But the bro didn't have the access to that kind of protein. He was living off a carb-heavy diet for sure.
Maybe some fish.
I mean, there was definitely protein in it. There was some fish. There was some lamb. It was an agricultural society, so they definitely had some meat. But dude wasn't taking 200 grams of protein a day. I can assure you of that.
Right. Yeah. Good Lord. What do we want to talk about now? We had
thus far, I don't know how far we are into this conversation, but we have had a pretty good, robust conversation, and we have not even hinted around even close to anything that we talked about talking about today.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
But those are the good conversations. It's just natural, whatever comes up. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know where you want to go. So caveat all this. Let's rewind and bring the audience into our world a little bit.
Okay.
I essentially messaged you and was like, "What are we talking about this week?" And you were like, "I don't know." And I was like, "Well, if you're relying on me, we're in bad shape because Again, hinting to the fact that I have been recently through what I would consider in the midst of another deconstruction, which pause and rewind a little bit there. I don't know what I was going to say before is I don't know that I ever actually stopped. Like, I don't know once you start deconstruction, you actually ever stop. So I don't know if it's accurate to call it a second deconstruction or if it's just, it goes like this. But anyway, regardless, because of that, I have not been too super inspired to think through a lot of the stuff, at least not stuff that I care to share currently.
Right.
So if you're relying on me for a topic, we're kind of screwed. So that was the conversation that was had. And then you had mentioned a couple of things that you were talking about and are thinking about.
Yeah, I will say just because we have had conversation since then, my mind's been more on the stuff we had talked about in text conversation more so than.
Right. Okay. So
But we don't have to go there if you want to not say any of that
oh, I don't
on
care.
here.
What were we even talking about?
Um, we
Logos.
the logos, yeah, and you had talked about Boltman
Rudolf Boltzmann.
and I like I had said I had heard actually Chris Green. I was listening to one of his podcasts and he had someone on that was because Chris Green's a big influence on him was Robert Jensen,
Yeah.
and so he had a guy on his podcast a while back who was also a big fan of Robert Jensen.
Big Jensen fella, huh?
Yeah, and so they were talking about Jensen, and apparently, yeah, I guess Boltman had an influence on Jensen, particularly early on in Jensen's. What I don't want.
Career.
Well, yeah, I know that's not technically correct, but
Right.
his the early stages of his like theological thinking and writing. I know he was influenced by Boltman, but
Right.
and then diverged from him a decent amount towards the later part of his life. So
It actually kind of, from what I understand, I am absolutely no authority on Boltman because I have really only started reading some of his stuff today.
yeah,
But I think from what I remember reading or listening to in a video that he kind of him Boltman himself had quite an evolution of his thinking, so it kind of just depends on like what
right.
part of Boltman's thinking had that kind of influence on Jensen because it could have been that he just Boltman's actually the one that diverged.
Right. Well, I think that initially it was Boltman's reading of scripture that Jensen was attracted to,
Yeah.
the sort of demythologizing
So
initially.
so the stuff that I'm into.
Yes. And then, of course, Jensen kind of diverged from that and I think kind of changed
Yeah.
his beliefs on that after, like, later on in his life.
I know little to nothing about Jensen, so I don't
Yeah.
other than what you've sent to me and some of the stuff, and I'm somewhat familiar with Chris Green, so
I mean, I so what little bit I have because I tried to do a little bit of research whenever you sent me that. I watched the listen to the video or whatever you sent me about Boltman, and I looked him up, asked Chat GPT some stuff, and
yeah.
tried to do a little bit of research. And based on what I heard and did read, I would say, nah.
Yeah.
Those are those are my thoughts.
I,
It's like
that's
every
what I would
single thing.
that's what I would expect that what your thoughts would be. Um, yeah, I don't know enough about what he believes to say like, oh yeah, this is what I believe. But like a lot of what in the high level overview, the video that I sent you, a lot of that sounds pretty similar to where my mind is at least as far as the language that he uses around demythologizing or the mythology of scripture. Like that's to be totally transparent and honest, that's where the biggest shift in my thinking has occurred lately. That's what I was hinting at when I said that like we can talk about this, but I don't want to do it through text because it's just way too confusing and way too complicated, and I would rather just wait till we have the conversation. Is really that's where the biggest shift for me has occurred, and that's where the biggest divergence between me and you seems to be. Is just the way that I currently view scripture has changed, and because of that, it's affected everything else, which obviously, I mean, scripture kind of ties to everything. So if your
Right.
view of that changes, it's going to change everything else. You know what I mean?
Right.
But particularly when I say my view of scripture has changed, what I mean is that I mean, this is kind of my own language, so please don't project this onto yourself or anybody else. This is just for me, but I kind of just accepted that, like, I've always been reading these things as historically reliable, as historical documents, and they're just not. Like they have no, they don't even agree with each other. These are not historical documents. I don't think that they were ever intended to be historical documents, and therefore we can't rely on them to be historically true. Like I don't have any reason to believe the mythology of some of this stuff that we know is myth. Like we don't, and I say we know is myth, but what I mean is if this was in any other setting, relied to anything else, we would understand this is myth. Obviously, it's not literally true. But because we approach this certain book this way, we believe it, even though I don't believe that we have good reason to. And like I think so that's why the language of myth to me strikes me, because I don't think that we can read these things as literal historical documents anymore. Like they're just not to me. They're stories, they're mythologies. Now again, I've said before that myth doesn't equal bad. Myth doesn't equal wrong. Like, I think that they are true, but not in a literal historical sense. They're true in that the message that they're telling, the deeper truth that's being told in them. So, yeah, I mean, that's been my biggest shift. And that's why I sent the Boltman thing to you, is like, I felt like his view of the demythologizing of the Gospels and, scripture as a whole, but the gospel specifically, is the way that's been the shift for me. Like that's caused me to rethink everything that I believe, essentially.
Yeah. I don't really know what to say about it.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't figure that you would, and I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different directions you can go in with that, because even me just saying that's going to leave a lot of questions in people's mind, and that's fine. I'm comfortable with that. I don't care. Like, it just is what it is. You know what I mean? It's my own study. It's my own path, and that's just, again, I can't control what I believe. So
Yeah. So I'm the thing is, I'm kind of with you.
I know, and that's what's frustrated the hell out of me.
I know, me too. I started to message you that today, and it's like nothing is more frustrating to me than the fact that we land in the same place but get there completely different ways.
Yeah. It just well, what
It's
frustrated
actually more frustrating than if we just had complete disagreement altogether.
it's hilarious that you think that, because when I said that I often run and think about some of the things, that's literally what I was thinking about when I was running today. I was thinking I
Yeah.
would be less frustrated with you if it was just we were completely off the in
Yeah.
different chapters
Yeah.
than the way it is. Like it's almost incredibly frustrating for me.
Yeah.
But it's good to know that it is for you too.
Yeah, because
That makes me feel like less of a jerk, at least.
right, because it's just and there are real differences. There are reasons, like there's real differences.
Yes, for sure.
But it's like a lot of the place we land is a very similar place, but what we do with it, I think from that point is also different.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that for me, it's not a matter of whether these things are so well. I will say the Gospels to me have a bit more historical
Right.
significance than you would probably be comfortable with.
For sure.
But the rest of but even the Gospels, and including everything that's in the Old Testament, and then the Gospels and everything, is like, can we prove that? That's the thing. We, I don't think that there's any way for us to prove or disprove
Right.
any of these things based on modern empirical historical data, like
Right.
like the historical research. I don't think that we can prove or disprove any of this stuff. So then what the freak do you do with it? And for me, it's it becomes a matter of, well, let me just read this because I sent this to you the other day, and yeah, I'm still on my Chat GPT era. I'm just asking Chat GPT everything. And I thought that this was so good, and because it says exactly what I've been thinking for a long time, but didn't know how to say it. And so let me see if I can even find it because I've had so many conversations with ChatGPT. Um, because I was asking about Robert Jensen and Chris Green and different ones, and I was asking about the idea of um history, like how important, because it would seem that from what I do know about Jensen's theology, the historical reliability of the Gospels would seem to be very important for him.
Right. That's why you're looking for that. That's why that's what I meant when I said that, like, some of the stuff, like, it frustrates me so much that we are almost on that same page, because like can distinctly remember having a conversation with you down here in this basement, but it was after we recorded. It was around the time that we were talking about mark and priority, and like I'd pointed out sort of what I just said, that like the gospels don't even agree with each other. Like they are not historically reliable in any sense of the way. Like they're just not. And you kind of agreed with me at that point. Like it kind of took me back, because you agreed with me and you were like, yeah, it doesn't bother me, it doesn't affect me, because I don't think these are historical documents. But I feel like everything that you believe is insistent on them being historically reliable. Like I don't know how they're not, like it has to be historically true. That's why it changed, because I believed what you believed before. Like we were in the same place. That's why it changed everything for me. Is because if that's not historically reliable, it changes everything. Like that is the linchpin that holds it all together. If from my perspective, like,
So I'm not saying that they aren't
okay,
historically reliable. What I am saying is that I don't think we can prove or disprove the reliability of them.
okay,
I don't think.
yes, to your like,
Can you find people that will dispute that? Sure, but can you find people that
yeah,
have the opposite effect with just as much,
right.
you know,
I mean, I would agree with that. Yes, I think that we mean different things when we say that. Like we take a different approach to it, but yes, it just at the bare bones, can you prove or disprove the virgin birth? No, nobody can prove it, nor can the people who don't believe in it disprove it. But what we do with that, I think, is different, because where my mind goes is that's obviously mythology. Like, no, you can't disprove it, but like, why would you believe it? Like, it doesn't. To me, that's like you also can't disprove the tooth fairy doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like, you can't because just you can't disprove things like that. But like, you don't have a good reason to, or I don't want to say you don't, but like for me, I no longer have a good reason to.
I think we have really good reason to hold on to it.
Well,
Even
I think the only good reason we have is because it shakes up your entire theology if you don't, which that's not comfortable. It's not easy, but I am okay with that. I step into that. I acknowledge that it's not comfortable, that it is hard, that it makes me rethink everything that I believe. But I can't pretend to believe something that I don't. You know what I mean? Like,
I personally just don't agree with that, though. I mean, I don't think that the only reason to hold on to it is from fear of going into deconstruction or whatever.
well, and that's why I tried to caveat that to say for me, like I just don't, and that's where my whole mythology thing comes from, and that's like I just don't think that we. I mean, I think quite a bit of it is obviously not literally true. It's obviously not historically true. It's obviously a mythology. So the point being is that instead of focusing on how can this be true, it's what is this trying to tell us? Like to me, the gospels are stories. They're narratives. They're written for a specific audience. They're written for a specific agenda. Again, agenda, like the word myth, isn't a negative thing. It isn't a bad thing. Um, but they're written for that purpose. They're not, for me, they're no longer historical documents. I don't try to read them as historical documents. I read them as stories. now I approach them. I approach the different doctrines that are contained therein, not from a perspective of like, this is historically true and it has to be. So like how, like with the hypostatic union, for example, how can Jesus have a divine nature and a human nature simultaneously? And because he does, it means this and it means this. And like, no, to me, it's not a literal truth. It's a story. That's a character being developed to tell us a story. Now, what is the story trying to tell us? What is the point? How does this affect me? Like that's the stuff I'm trying to focus on more so than like, how can this be literally true? And if it is literally true, then what's the effects of that? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I mean, it makes sense in insofar as like I know what you're saying.
That's what I mean. When I say it doesn't make sense, that's what I mean.
Yeah, and I mean, and you're just not going to agree with how what I do with that. Like I said, I don't think that we can prove or disprove those things. I don't think we can prove or disprove the fact. I mean, I think that there is reason to believe, based on certain historical data, that Jesus did resurrect. Even very critical scholars would say that there is reason to believe that. Uh, and I think that there is reason to believe that Jesus performed miracles, like actually performed miracles. Um, his crucifixion, I mean, even like most scholars would agree with that, even critical scholars would agree with that. Like, there are certain things that I think
Yeah,
they may not be able to be proven that exactly how it is in the gospel narrative is exactly how it went down,
right,
but we can prove to a certain extent that Jesus was real and
right.
these things really happened in his life and these people witnessed it. And this is what we have based on that.
See, and that's where I both agree and disagree with you for just from my own personal perspective. Because I'm not denying that Jesus existed. I think Jesus was a real person in history that lived. I think that we know very little about his life. But most scholars, it's a very minority position that believe that the whole thing is a myth, that Jesus just doesn't exist, was never a historical person. Like I don't accept that, and most even atheist or agnostic scholars don't accept that. Like that's a very small minority of people. And there are certain things about his life that are pretty well accepted, even among super critical, non-believing scholars, right? Like most people do believe the crucifixion, that's a true, like, likely happened. Like the bare bones of what we know, quote unquote, know about the historical Jesus is that this is a person that was born. Um, I think I haven't done probably enough research on this to say definitively, but I think that most people do, would agree that his mother's name was Mary, probably. Um, that he was a preacher, itinerant preacher, a apocalyptic. He had a following of people, and he was crucified. Like that's to me. I'm sure that there are other things in there, but to me, like those are the things that stand out as like evangelicals, Orthodox, Catholic, and atheist and agnostic scholars. Like everyone can agree on those sort of. Sorry, excuse me. But even obviously all that comes with a caveat because there's no 100% consensus on anything. Not even 100% of people believe Jesus was a real historical person. But again, that's a very minority position.
Right. And so that's where we diverge, and that's where it gets frustrating for me because knowing no all that being said, like that there's certain things we just cannot really know for sure about the historical reliability of the gospels. What I do with that and what you do with that are just very different.
Right.
But even then, I think we end up saying things that are very similar,
No.
which is frustrating. But let me read this.
Yeah.
I really liked this. I was asking because of, Jensen's, some of his view of narrative, like God as narrative. I asked ChatGPT about Jensen and about um, the how important is the historical reliability of the Gospels for Jensen and for Chris Green. I mean, whether any of this is true or not. I don't know. This is just what ChatGPT said, but I really liked it. So this is what it said. Robert Jensen absolutely affirms the centrality of history. For him, the God of the Bible has a name. The name is a story. That name is a story. This means that God's very identity is tied to historical acts, especially the Exodus and the resurrection of Jesus. If these didn't happen in any real sense, then the Christian God has no identity, no name. God becomes a vague idea. But, and this is key, Jensen doesn't mean history in a modern empirical post-Enlightenment sense. He's not concerned with proving biblical events the way a modern historian would. Instead, he affirms the reliability of the gospel narratives because the church lives them, proclaims them, and prays them. The gospels are not just records of what happened, but the way God's people remember and name God faithfully in time. They're liturgical, communal, theological memory. And for Jensen, that's more trustworthy than detached, neutral history. And I love that. You hate it, but I love it.
I don't hate it at all. It just none of it means anything to me. You know what I mean? Like it don't.
And to me, it means everything.
Right.
And that's where it's frustrating because, like, this is what I'm saying. Like that last line in particular, their liturgical, communal, theological memory. And for Jensen, and for me, that's more trustworthy than whether we can prove this to be historically accurate through empirical evidence. Like that's why, like the historicity of it doesn't matter to me anywhere near as much as, and this is all of this is connected because the other stuff that I wanted to talk about like tradition,
Yeah.
right, and about things being passed on, like, and I went and listened to, and I'm probably gonna cry. I went and back and listened to a sermon that I'd listened to from Chris Green before, and he was talking about, can we love God? Like, what? How do you know you love God? How do you know you love Jesus? Like, what does that even mean? Like, you don't. And there's the scripture from First Peter, knowing him who you haven't seen. Like we haven't seen Jesus. Like, unlike Peter, James, John, whoever, like I've never seen Jesus face to face. I've never, Jesus was a real person. Like
Right.
he had, you could touch him. He had a smell. He had a tone of voice. Like just like I have a weird sounding voice, he had a voice, He had,
He probably farted.
he certainly farted. But you know what I mean? Like all of the things, you could see him and you could hear him and you could touch him and through Eucharist you can taste him, but
Smell his farts.
right, but like I don't see him, but I still love him. I still love Jesus even though I can't see him. And part of the reason for that is because dadgummit man, Peter loved him. Peter loved Jesus. Peter saw him. Peter walked with him and talked with him, knew the sound of his voice, knew what he smelled like, knew what he knew Jesus and he loved him. And because Peter loved him and John loved him, people like Irenaeus loved him. And because Irenaeus loved him, people like Gregory Nyssa loved him, and Maximus loved him. And because Maximus loved him, people like Robert Jensen loved him. And because people like Jensen loved him, and John Wesley loved him, like my brother Hinton loved him. And because brother Hinton loved him, other like my Papa Case loved him, and because he loved him, my parents loved him, and because my parents loved him, I love him. And that's that tradition, that handing on of this story, whether we can prove it historically or not. The fact that this story has been handed down from people that love Jesus all the way down until now, that to me is all the proof I need. I don't care about whether we can prove it historically or not. It's more true to me because of that, because of all those things I just said. Like again, it says it way better than I could. Like it's liturgical and communal and theological memory. It's a memory of Jesus that's theological and it's communal. It's about this community. It's about this people called the church. That is why I believe it. And that's why I care so much about what the church has said and why I try to stay more, I guess, more orthodox. And but that's why to me is that's what I do with that. The route that I take from, well, we can't prove any of this is like, well, the proof that I have is the tradition itself in a sense. And I know that's not going to be satisfying to
Right.
a lot of folks, including you,
Right.
but that is what I do with it.
I mean, that's the interesting thing about this to me is not so much like trying to get you to see it my way or me to see it your way, but that it is like that. I believe you. You know, like
Right.
I don't think that you're making all that up. Like that obviously moves you, and that means a lot to you, and I believe you when you say that. But at the same time, respectfully, none of that does anything for me. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and it's just interesting to me how those different things coexist. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Like because I do have the respect for that. Like it makes it hard. It does make it hard to, and that's why some of the conversations that we have had are hard because I recognize that and I want to respect it, but at the same time, it I'm trying to search for something deeper for me, and so I'm trying to get at the things that are going to affect me. You know what I mean? And so like
Yeah.
it does make having those conversations difficult for sure. But it's an interesting thing. I mean, the sociological aspect of it, what resonates with you and what resonates with me being two totally different things. You know?
Yeah. I don't know. It is just it's a frustrating thing because again, like we both would agree that the historical, whether we could prove or disprove the historical reliability of this thing doesn't really matter, but
Right.
what we do with it from that point is very different.
See, it mattered to me, and that's why it shook everything up. Is because, and I mean, I think that you would agree with this, but it does like from the perspective that I used to have, and the perspective that I think that you currently hold, like it has to be historically true. Whether you can prove it or not, it has to be. It has to be. Because I mean, would you agree with that? Like, it has to be. It has to be historically true for you. Like the 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 hypostatic union, the virgin birth, the resurrection, all of the supernatural stuff, all of the. It has to be literally true, right?
I believe that it is true. I don't know whether it has to be historically, literally true or not for it to be true, but I believe it's true.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you believe it's true, but I feel like everything in that theological stream is built upon it being literally true. It has to be. I mean, that's literally what caused it to fall apart for me.
I don't know. I don't know that I don't know.
Because that's the only difference. That's how we end up in the same spot. We just get there through different methods. It's like I could no longer uh, affirm certain things like that I believed to be true. Like I could no longer believe them to be historically true. Well, if that isn't historically true, it affects this downstream and this downstream and this downstream and this downstream. So you have to rearrange everything.
But historical truth isn't the only truth. I don't think. I think that something can be true whether it's
Which is which is the way I
That's what I'm saying.
This is the way I interpret it now, because I don't believe it to be literally true, but I still believe it. That's why I always emphasize that myth doesn't necessarily mean wrong or that it's not true. Like, and that's, at least, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but the way I was raised is like, all those other religions are myths, but Christianity is true. I'm like, no, I think Christianity is a myth too. It's a mythic religion based in truth, like probably most of the other religions are too. But it is a mythic tradition to me. But that doesn't mean it's not true. It speaks to a deeper truth to me. It's no longer literally historically true to me in the same way as it used to be. But it's still true, even though it's mythology. Because there are different kinds of truth, as you were pointing out.
Yes, and the thing is, I wouldn't use the language you're using for it, but I probably kind of believe that too. Like I don't know, like if someone could prove to me historically, like empirically, that like Jesus, the virgin birth wasn't true. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, see, and but
I
that's,
think I would still believe it.
but what do you mean? I thought you were going somewhere else with that.
That's what I'm saying. Like I actually think we agree more than apparently even more than you thought we did.
Maybe. I'm still not sure I understand what you mean.
I don't know if I know what I mean.
Because my point is, like, I don't, and this is what I think people misunderstand about me, for those that know me personally, is that I don't believe necessarily, and this isn't, again, I'll always caveat when I said it already in this episode, when I say I believe something, that's what I believe right now, but I'm always studying and learning, but I don't necessarily currently affirm a literal virgin birth. But I believe that story is there for a reason. It tells us something deeper. In that respect, I believe it to be true. I don't believe it to be historically true. I don't believe it to be literally true. But I believe the story itself, the deeper truth, the way it applies to me and to everybody else is true. Just not in a literal historical sense. The same way that I would affirm basically any of the what I would consider mythology of the Gospels, any of the supernatural stuff. Like, I don't necessarily literally believe those events to be historic true. This happened. You could, if you had a time machine, you could go back and look at this happening in history. I don't believe that. I believe that's a myth, but I believe it's a true myth, that it's telling us something. It's a story meant to tell us something. So, like, that's what I mean when I mean it's true. Like, I don't think we could get in a time machine theoretically and go back and this event happened that we could watch, but I believe there's truth in the story of it. That's all I'm saying.
Right. What I'm saying is that I think that that's right.
So then
Only,
we don't disagree at all. Okay, case closed.
only, only, I wouldn't say that I don't believe it happened historically. I'm saying I don't know whether it did or not.
Right.
That's my only thing.
And
I'm not comfortable saying for sure that this did not happen, that this 100% did not happen historically. I'm not willing to go as far as you are in that respect, but
right.
everything else I'm pretty well in agreement with. It's like my, I, because again, like I said, I don't think we can prove or disprove it one way or the other. Like
Right.
I don't concern myself with whether it can be or can't be. I don't make a judgment about that. I guess whether I'm saying like I definitely don't think this happened historically, or I definitely do think this happened historically. For me, it is true regardless.
Okay.
And so, but it's true for me in a different way than it is for you, I think, because I think it's true in the way that it's been passed down to us from the church. Like
Yeah, we probably disagree on that, I would say.
so like I'm still comfortable using all of the Orthodox Christian language around it. And I really do believe that.
Yeah.
Like I believe Jesus is fully God and fully man. I believe that Jesus,
Right.
I believe all that stuff. But it's not because I'm 100% sure you could prove it historically. It's because I believe from the witness of the church, and I believe that I believe that God has inspired the scriptures, and I believe that the scriptures are I don't think that the scriptures are just entirely man's account. I think that they are inspired by God and by Jesus, by this word, the logos. And so because of that, yeah, I do believe that the scriptures are trustworthy. Now, are they historical fact? I don't know, but they're trustworthy regardless. That's where I stand on that.
Well, I didn't say that they weren't trustworthy. I said they're not historically trustworthy.
Right.
Like that's the only difference. I mean, and to be fair, I think that maybe you're right. Maybe we are closer on this. The difference is that I feel like, are more like kind of like just the way you said it, like you believe it because the church believes it. Whereas I also would affirm I can't disprove it, but dead men don't get up and walk. You know what I mean? So I don't. My default position is to disbelieve that until I'm proven otherwise. You know what I
And
mean?
that's where the demythologizing stuff doesn't jive with me,
Right.
with Tillich or
And
Boltman.
I think, and the reason why that stuff resonates with me, well, number one is just because it helps me to believe it. It's something for me to hold on to when all the rest of it falls apart.
Yeah, I don't like that.
But also, just from not necessarily with you, but based around the things that other people teach and say, I feel like the gospel itself loses a lot of practicality when we focus on um those certain aspects, I guess is the way I would say it. Those certain things that I don't even necessarily believe are the point or literally true. That I think that they're a part of a story to tell you a deeper truth, but that deeper truth is missed because we're focused on the literal historical aspects of it. So in that regard, that's part of why I think it helps us to get to a more healthy place. It makes it more it makes it more applicable to us personally. Just my own personal opinion, but
So,
um yeah.
so the demythologizing, that approach to scripture, that more critical um, approach to scripture,
Yeah.
uh, it doesn't resonate with me at all.
Yeah.
Um, but not for the reason, like I agree with, but not because of what you just said. Like I agree with what you just said. But to me, the answer to that isn't like, and I don't know that this is what you would say either, but this is the kind of the vibe I got just from the, again, like just because I watched a 30-minute video and did a quick Google search of Boltman doesn't mean I know anything about him.
Right.
So if we talked about saying stupid things at the very beginning of the podcast. This is my saying stupid things moment. So just take that for what
I've
it
already had
is.
a few of those, so
Like, from what I understand from Boltman's approach to the scripture, it is about trying to make it make sense for modern readers, and it's more about it's not a and to me, that's not the point of the scriptures. Isn't to like make it palatable for modern readers. It's the point of the scriptures is to it's God speaking to you. It's God doing work. It's the Holy Spirit speaking through the scriptures to you. It's doing work inside of you when you read it. And it's reading with that veil removed, right? From 2 Corinthians 3. Like whenever Christ removes that veil and you read the scriptures and like it's opened up to you and it's your heart, like just like the guys on the road to Emmaus, their hearts burned within them as he opened up the scriptures to them. That's what the scriptures are for to me. They're not about like uh, dismissing huge swaths of it because we can't because supernatural things don't make sense to us in our modern mind frame. Like I don't
I don't think that that's fair to Boltman
probably
personally.
not.
But
That's why I said it was something probably stupid.
I don't
But
think that that's what he's necessarily like. First of all, I don't think that he's disregarding any scriptures. Like I think that he tries to give an account for all of them. I think that and maybe I misunderstood because I don't know him any better than you do, really. But the way that I understand what he was saying with that, and the way that it makes sense to me is essentially it's not just making it palatable. Like we're just going to ignore what it's actually saying to make it more palatable. It's like if the church is going to continue, then you need to catch up to times, because this is all based upon mythology. And if you're trying to, if you attach this fact that these supernatural, these mythological things that we know aren't true in our modern world, if that is a prerequisite for belief in the gospel, then then people are going to not believe in the gospel, because I mean, part of what he hinges on, he talks about the New Testament, sort of the three-tiered cosmology, where you have the earth, and then above the earth you have heaven, and then under the earth you have the waters. And like, that's, the way that the cosmology was believed about, like that's part of the mythology. And like, that's just an example, but like, if you're telling us, we know that to not be true in our modern world. So if that was something that the gospel itself is hinged upon, is mythology, is supernatural things that science has already disproven, the church is going to die out. Like, the church has to keep up with the time, it's funny enough that you brought up talking about tradition, because that's where I thought this whole conversation ties into tradition. For me, it's not about hanging on to antiquated beliefs. It's catching up to, it's taking what it's actually saying. It's diving into the story, finding what it's actually saying underneath the myth, underneath the story, and applying it to make it relevant to people in the 21st century,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I think about that.
Yeah, and when I say, again, I'm only mean you understand what I'm trying to say, not that you agree with what I say.
Yeah. Mm. Because yeah, it's just that speaking of things not being palatable, that's not very palatable to me, I don't think. Because like, to me, it is missing the point of the scriptures, I think, in a lot of ways. Like, it's because it still sounds to me like we're like, I'm not convinced that the church's survival or the scripture's survival is dependent upon us um demythologizing the scriptures. I'm not I'm not convinced of that at all. I actually don't think I believe that at all. Um, I think that the scriptures intend to do something deeper than that. The spirit intends to do something deeper than that
I think it does
with the
too, but
scriptures.
you're not going to get to that deeper part if people aren't picking it up in the first place, because you're insistent that these things, that it has to be like this, and the people are like, well, why am I?
It doesn't have to be literally true in that sense.
I think, though, that's what he's saying. I think that's his point, and maybe I'm wrong.
Like, we don't have to believe that ancient cosmology is the truth over against, like, we don't have to believe that there are windows in the sky with an ocean
Right.
above it
But I think
that rain comes in,
I think that's what he's trying to say. That's my point. I think that's what he's trying to say. It's like, if you're attaching this mythical stuff, this supernatural stuff, and saying this is what the Bible says, and you either believe it or you don't, well, then people are just not going to believe it. Like, they're not even going to. I agree that, yes, there are, like, that's the whole reason why I read the scriptures. I don't think that they're literally true in that sense anymore. Like, I think that it is about that deeper thing that you're talking about. But people ain't going to get to the deeper thing if they're not reading it, and they're not going to read it if they think it's worthless to them.
I do think that there is a difference between rejecting ancient cosmology because they just didn't know any better and rejecting the resurrection of Jesus. Like, I don't, to me, there's a difference between just understanding that this is ancient people and their understanding of the world versus like anything supernatural or miraculous.
I would agree and disagree, because I do think that there is a difference, because the cosmos is observable now, and Jesus's body isn't here. So, to your point of what you said earlier, you can't prove or disprove it. Whereas we can look in the cosmos, but then again, people still believe the Earth's flat, and we can still observe. We can observe it. So,
Yeah. But my proof of the resurrection, again, it's not that I don't have any proof, but the proof isn't empirical
right.
data. It's just So, I believe that Jesus did resurrect, but I don't believe that because I know for sure you could prove that
Right.
historically. It's deeper than that, truer than that, even maybe.
Maybe.
But I do think for me there is a difference between that and believing that, literally, again, literally there is a, like a place underneath the earth called Sheol, and underneath that is water where Leviathan lives, and I don't have to, to me there is a difference between that, but
I think the only difference for me is, again, that the one is observable today and the other one is just,
observable today, I think.
I would, yeah,
Not in that,
I don't think it is,
not
not
in the sense you would want, but I think it is.
right. I mean, I think it is in the, what's the story's trying to tell us. That's what actually where my mind was going earlier when you were talking about you haven't seen Jesus. And I was like, what do you mean? Have you not seen other people? Yeah, we have. like,
Right. Yeah.
I'm looking at right now. I mean, because that's what the story means to me. It's not about whether that's what the resurrection story is to me. It's not about whether this guy who was crucified 2,000 years ago got up and started walking through walls and then ascended into outer space. No, it's a story it's meant to purvey a deeper truth,
Right. But all of that is different between me and you anyway, though, because I agree, Christ is in all of us, but the reason I believe that is because I believe that, well, actually, what do you mean by that? What do you mean whenever you say Jesus is in everybody? What does that mean?
Well, and when I say Jesus, what I mean by that is what Jesus, of the Gospels, what that symbolizes, which is the divine within every person. I believe that that God, the divine, is the ground of being, and so that there can be no you without God. That is what animates you. It's the spark of life. It is what gives us consciousness. And so it's inherent in all people. And so to me, that's what part of that symbolizes, is that's what the Jesus in the Gospels, that's what the story is trying to tell us, is that there is no separation between us and God. There is no alienate. The only alienation between God and mankind is in our mind, right? That's what the hypostatic union means to me. Not that it's some sort of literal conundrum that we're trying to argue about how this could possibly work. No, it's a story to tell us that you don't exist. You cannot separate the you from God. It can't happen because you will be annihilated. You will not exist. That's taking the ground of being from you. It's inherent to all people and always has been and always will be. You can't have life without it. So that's what I mean when I say that. I believe that symbolizes the divine. It's God within all of us.
To me, that's true because of Jesus, though.
Right.
Whereas for you, you wouldn't say that.
No, I would say it's always been true and always has been true and always will be true. It's the way we were created. God breathed his breath in man and man became a living being. It's just it's our genetic makeup, I guess you could say. It's what makes us human,
I would say that too, but I would still say it's because of Jesus.
Right. And I understand that you would say that, but to me, it just doesn't make any sense. That's where we get into where I say, and I know that this isn't palatable to you, but I don't know any better way to say it. So just know that it's going to tick you off, but I don't mean it in a negative, derogatory way. But to me, that's where we say things that sound really good, sounds good. But then if you think through, well, what do I mean by that? What does that mean to say that? I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything to you. I'm saying to me, when I think through that,
it means literally everything to me.
Right. I'm saying that when I try to think through that literally, what does that mean? What do I mean when I say that? I think it sounds awesome. I don't think it means much. I don't think it makes sense in a literal manner.
I asked ChatGPT if you were a Christian or not.
Well,
that's something we've been talking about.
Yeah, it is. Actually, I was pissed off about it. I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah.
I was straight pissed off about it.
Yeah.
I'm not now. Actually, I say I was pissed off about it. I think I was actually hurt. And some of it was because, well, and now we're getting probably too personal, but
Well, I didn't really bring it up because of that.
I
I was
know.
just
But, well, to be fair, though, it factors into it because I hadn't really thought about it until then, but it forced me to think about it. And at first, it, I guess, gave me a lot of maybe PTSD, like those feelings from my original deconstruction of rejection, of like, you don't belong here. You're not one of us. Like all of that kind of came up within me, made me angry, made me sad, made me frustrated. And and then I realized I don't give a damn. Like I just, why do I care? Like label me what you want. I don't care. I'm me. Like I am where I am because I've tried to, because of my own studies, and it's not for a lack of wanting, and it just is what it is. It goes back to that I can't control what I believe. Yeah, I mean, would you want me to pretend so that I can fit in your neat little box? Like, this is, label me what you want. I don't know. Maybe I'm in, maybe I'm not. What did ChatGPT say anyway?
well, well, I didn't ask it about you specifically. Basically, I was asking it questions about Boltman,
Yeah,
and as because it said and Till it says it's about Tillich and
yeah,
Boltman, and that's why I sent you
yeah,
that question I asked you because um, for both of them, Jesus is still the decisive. The way it was worded in the Chat GPT was that Jesus is the decisive revelation of God, the decisive revelation of God
right,
versus just a revelation among others of God.
right,
So and so it I asked ChatGPT if theoretically
yeah,
if Boltman didn't believe that
yeah,
about Jesus, didn't believe that Jesus was the decisive, but a decisive, or not a decisive, but a revelation of God,
right.
would Boltman still be considered a Christian? I was just curious what it would say. And it said no, probably not.
Yeah,
Based on everything else that, like, not that probably on its own, but in combination with everything else that it was saying about Boltman, it would be hard for even progressive or more liberal theologians to consider Boltman a Christian if that were the case. That's just what it said.
yeah. I don't know that I agree, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have to take a decisive stand. Um, I would say only like the part of me that says I disagree is because I think that you can hold that Jesus, in the way that Boltman views Jesus, you can hold that the Jesus of the Gospels is the, or let's say theoretically you can hold. I don't know if you can or not. And that was the second part of the question. We'll get to that in a minute. But theoretically, you can hold that the Jesus of the Gospels is the full representation of God. And theoretically hold that, let's just throw out another, like say Krishna is also the full representation of God in their own respective streams. Just because you would hold that Krishna is also a full representation of God doesn't necessarily mean that it subtracts from Jesus's full revelation of God. You know what I mean? Like it's, and I say theoretically because it tracks back to the first part, and this is the way I would answer the question. I didn't actually see your question until I was already here, and I was like, well, we'll just talk about it. But the way that I would answer that for me personally is that I don't have enough information about any of those other, like I've been a Christian since I was born. I don't know enough about any of those other revelations to know whether they are or are not a full revelation of God. I do believe that the revelation of Jesus as presented to us is the representation. I think that's the whole point of the story. It's the, so yeah, I think that Jesus is the full revelation of God. Does that mean that none of those other are? I don't know. I don't know enough about them to say.
Right. So like that wording for Boltman and I think it said the same for Tillich was the decisive
Right.
revelation. So that would be different than Krishna and
Yes.
Jesus both being a full revelation. The decisive
Right.
revelation would put a uniqueness on Jesus that wouldn't be true for anyone else.
I would agree.
At least in the way that's worded, at least.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know enough about either one of their like positions to know if that's accurate or not. But
Right.
like, if it's worded that way, then yeah, I think that that is what that means. Like, that's the
Yeah.
way I would interpret that. You know.
Right. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't even brought that up. I didn't really bring it up to try to like to tell you you are or
Oh,
aren't.
I know.
I just
I don't take any offense to it. I mean, it's a good conversation to have. It's not. I mean, again, it's relevant. It's not something I haven't been thinking about on my own. You know.
right.
I mean, not to mention that before, even just not really had nothing to do theologically. It was more political than anything. Like, I had already questioned whether I even wanted to call myself a Christian just because of the associations that come along with that. Do I even want to be a part of that? But
Yeah.
just you know, theologically, I mean, I still consider myself a Christian because that's the tradition I know. It's the one I study. Like, I don't, to the point I was just making, I don't know enough. Like, I'm decently well read. You know, I've read parts of the Bhagavad Gita. I know the Norse myths pretty well. Like, I've read quite a bit of stuff from, you know, some Buddhist writers like Pema Chodron and Thich Nhat Hanh. Like, I'm decently well read, but I don't know enough to say like, but I do. I know Christian theology pretty well. Like, I know, not even just when I say I know Christian theology well, even stuff I don't necessarily agree with. Like, I know like a lot, quite a bit about it, and that's the only tradition I know. So like, to me, Jesus is the revelation of God. It's the only one I know. But I'm not. I think I'm a little more careful with my words, just because I don't necessarily mean that I think that means all those other religions are wrong. You know what I mean? Like, maybe though, maybe their version of their representation, maybe their revelation of God is just as equally valid as Jesus. I just don't know enough about it to say that. For me, it's Jesus. That's the tradition I was born in. That's the tradition I've been raised in. It's the tradition I know. It's where all of my friends are part of. It's We've said on this show before, I couldn't even go anywhere else if I wanted to. We have nothing but Christian churches here.
Right.
There's no Buddhist temples, there's no Hindu temples, there's nothing where we live. There's only Christianity. So I couldn't be anything else even if I wanted to, or I could have to do it on my own.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
to me, it's not about, and that's where I get frustrated with a lot of the conversation about like Christianity and some of this other stuff, is like, it's not about debunking these other religions. Like, this is Christianity is for me. Like, this is what I like. This is what makes sense to me. This is the way I've learned. This is what my family, this is my community. These are all my friends. You know what I mean? And like, I don't have any reason to leave it necessarily, just because, like, even if everybody else considers me not a Christian, like, I mean, I guess that's a bummer. That's part of the reason why, like, the only reason why that conversation matters to me at all is just because, like, it makes you like, when you are made to feel like you don't belong in the only group that you have, then who else do you have?
Right.
Like, I'm not a super social person anyway. You know what I mean? So like, if I'm going to be shunned by my own community, the only community that I have, then I have nobody else. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's the part of that whole conversation that like really hurts my feelings and like gets to me, because it it's just, I don't have anybody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah. If you want to ask me personally, do I think that Jesus is the decisive, what was the language? The decisive
The decisive revelation of God.
revelation for God. He is my decisive revelation of God. To me, yes. The answer to me is yes. But again, caveat, I don't know the others. I can't say he's the only one, but he's the only one I know.
See, that's why the language of the seed of the logos that I read today from Justin Martyr makes a ton of sense to me,
Yeah, yeah.
because it's not that I would say that there isn't any truth in any other religion, but to me the truth is Jesus. And so
Right.
it's and because I believe, again, I believe that Jesus is, there is no pre-incarnate to me. And like, even then, but even if we wanted to say that, like,
Right.
the pre-incarnate word, like, Christ is eternal, always has been. So like, and God has always been speaking to his children, to his people. So like, To me, any overlap between other religions, any truth that is found in any other religion, is is Christ. If it's true, it's God's truth, and if it's God's truth, it's the Logos. So, like, I really like how Justin Martyr talks about the seed of the Logos in these other religions. Like, there's a seed of the Logos.
Right.
Um, but the Logos, the definitive Word of God, would be Jesus. Like, for me,
Right. And that's
like, I
why I
really like
said
that.
I understand it. I understand what he's saying, and I understand the like where he's coming from. I get it. I'm not. I don't know that I would go there personally just because of what I said. Like I don't. I don't know that Jesus is any more of the revelation of God than Krishna or Buddha or any of these other gods because I don't know them. You know what I mean? I know Jesus, so I guess I'm not willing to because in a way that is sort of talking down to those other religions. It's saying like, yeah, sure, you guys got some truth, but the only truth that you guys do have is because of my guy sprinkled a little bit of his truth in there. Like, I know that that's I'm being snide and saying that, but that's the way it comes off to me. And it's like, I don't know that I'm willing to say that. I don't know enough about their religion to say that. I do think that Jesus is true. Like the Jesus as presented is truth. Like that's where our truth is found. That's where I go to. Like to me, that's what good theology. It looks like Jesus as presented in the Gospels. But I think it's just a step further for me to say any truth that can be found in some of these other religions is Jesus. I don't know enough about the religions to make that judgment. And it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that. The only other thing that I had talked about, us maybe talking about, was the whole like, because like what you were getting at earlier, like I do believe that too. Like it's not that, like I believe what I believe. I think largely I really do believe it because I've just been, I don't know what the word is, but convinced, but not in the way that like you're convinced by empirical evidence, but like I have been convinced by the witness of the church through the centuries. Like I have been convinced by this history. I have been convinced by my own experiences that these things that we believe about Jesus, that they are true. Um, but like you were saying earlier, I do think that we do have to find a way in our current time and culture to move that story forward, to move that tradition, to pass that tradition on to the next generation. And every generation has to do that. They have to, what's the old saying, that chew the meat and spit out the bones, right? Like every tradition has to determine what is most important for us here and now, and what is worth, like if we can only pass on these things to the next generation for the church, like what are we passing on? Like every generation has to do that. And yeah, I was talking to you a little bit about it. I was saying that like I get frustrated with folks that want to, because a lot of folks would say that I'm holding on to the past, but I'm not really holding on to the past as much as I'm like, I think respecting that past and that witness and that tradition, but moving it forward. Like I want to pass it on. I want to move it forward in a way that's faithful.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that in our community, let's just say, not, and when I say our community, I do not mean the people that we go to church with necessarily. Like that's not, so please don't mishear me.
yeah,
But just some of the like, I'm talking holistically, people that we know and, with some of our history, we do come from a tradition that sort of emphasizes, I think, that old school return to old. You know what I mean? So like I think that you are a little bit of an anomaly in that respect that. Like the language I use is you're sentimental. Like I think you are a sentimental person. I think you get it honest. Your mom's sentimental too. You know what I mean? Like like I think that you have a hell
Yeah.
like you have a sentimental like what I mean when I say that is you hold the past with high regard. Like it means a lot to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean the same thing to you that I think it means to a lot of other people because of what you were just saying. Whereas it means a lot to you, but that doesn't mean you want to turn back the clock to 1940.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
want to take the good from there and move it forward to the next generation. And I think that's what makes you an anomaly amongst that community.
But I mean, I think that if we were all honest, we all kind of want to do that to a certain extent. Um, but to some people, that means not changing anything, not re-examining anything that we've
Right.
previously believed, not not questioning anything, not actually reading the scriptures and thinking, is that what I know that I was taught that this is what this means, but it sounds like it could mean this. What if it means that instead of this, or this instead of that? You know, like,
Mm.
but also,
That makes me want to. Don't lose your thought. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna make a note for you to remind me because I'm reading that Chris Green book and I did get something good out of that. It tracks with what you were just saying, and because I'm always critical of Chris Green because you like him so much. That's why I'm hypercritical on him. But I want to give him a compliment in a minute. So
okay, well, now I'm really curious what you were going to say. That I don't remember what I was saying. No, but like basically, the whole point of me saying any of that, bringing any of that up, is like, we've gotten a lot of flack from people. I personally have gotten a lot of flack from people in the past about like people that feel like I'm like my Papaw Case or Brother Hinton or whoever would be ashamed of our church, or even more specifically, me would be ashamed
right.
of me and rolling over in their grave, so to speak, and like,
You let a dirty, rotten liberal like me corrupt you.
well, like people have went so far as to kind of like claim demonic possession and because I because I'm an Orthodox Christian, like like more orthodox than most people that are even making the claims probably,
Right,
if
for
we
sure.
wanted to get down to
Absolutely.
like the creeds and like what is and isn't believed in orthodoxy, like I'm more orthodox than probably most of those folks, but like it's but it's not about that, like that I had been really frustrated and angry about that at one point in time, and now I'm just kind of like grieved, like a little sad that like we can't, because that's not how the church is going to grow. The church will not move. I mean, the church will survive because it's Christ's church, and it's going to, the gates of hell will not prevail against it, right? So it's going to move forward. But like, uh, we have our part to play in that. And I'm sorry, your part's not going to be very large if you're so holding on to certain things that are, I don't know how, if I even want to say that. I don't know how to say what I'm saying. I think that every generation is going to have to find what's worth passing on and what's not. I've already said that, but like it just, and something else Chris Green said, that I was listening to him and he made a comment about the people in his own tradition, the Pentecostal tradition. There are people who, there's plenty of people who were, you know, holy, but were not holy, you know what I mean by that? I mean, I'm sure you know what I mean by
Yeah.
that, but like people that, um, well, kind of like what I was saying earlier,
The
they said they believe, they said all the right things, but they're
whitewashed tombs.
right, yeah, yeah, yeah. They said all the right things and looked the part, but there was not, but there was some always, and I think that like I mean, I don't remember a whole lot about my papal case, but just from what I know about him, what I've been told about him, like what made me think about this is Chris specifically mentioned that the saints in his own tradition were the ones that cried and sang. Like, in other words, people who you could tell had a real heart.
The anti-me.
Well,
I don't
not
cry or
necessarily,
sing.
not necessarily, but like people who you can tell that they have a real heart for Jesus and for the people. And Brother Hinton was like that. Like one of the most famous things about that is passed on to our generation from Brother Hinton is that he always said to love people where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And man, like if you actually think about that and you actually apply that to your life, love people where they are at. I don't think most of us live that way, man.
No.
But like that is real wisdom. And that's what I'm talking about. Like the Sweet William, my papaw case,
Sick, man.
his heart and like I recognize that in myself. And like those are the things that matter, man. My papaw didn't have perfect theology. Brother Hinton didn't have perfect theology.
Right.
All these other people in our past, none of them had perfect theology. Perfect theology is not even a thing we can do.
I'm the only one with perfect theology.
Yeah. Speak for yourself, I guess. But you know what I mean? Like, it's not about having perfect theology. It's not about having all this stuff figured out. What it is about loving Jesus and having a heart for people and for God and passing that on, man. Dadgummit. That's what matters.
Galatians 5:14.
But if we don't find a way for us to do that here and now, that actually is loving people, that actually is speaking to other people, that actually is drawing people in because they can see that you have a real heart for people and for Jesus. If they can't see that and aren't drawn to that, then you're doing nothing to I don't care how many people you teach your doctrines to, you're not doing anything to further the kingdom. You're not doing anything to pass on this tradition without that element of it. I'm not saying doctrine isn't important. I'm not
Right.
saying good theology isn't important.
But I think like it's kind of what we talk about all the time, though, is that good theology is. I don't know that. To your point, there's no such thing as a perfect. Nobody has a perfect theology. Good theology is a aspect of growth. It's something that you grow into, man. Like
Right.
we're always. That's kind of the point I'm always getting at, where I'm always constantly. That's the emphasis I'm trying to make between. I'm not just wishy washy in the stuff I believe, but I am always reassessing and reading and learning because I am growing theologically, and my views on things do shift and change because that's something that you grow. Like your theology is something that grows. It should theoretically always be growing. You should always be, in my opinion, learning more and going deeper and deeper. And
Right.
that, but that's to your point, that's secondary. Like that's something that comes along in the walk. You know what I mean? But like if you don't get people in the door in the first place,
Right.
then that growth is never going to occur.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm just really convinced that the people, those that are actually drawing people into the church are people that are really genuine, that you can tell they have a heart for the gospel. They have a heart for Jesus. They have a heart for people.
yeah,
People seeing that example, that's what draws people in.
people are hungry, man. They're hungry for, but when I say they're hungry, they're not, in my opinion, they're not hungry for like abstract ideology. What they're hungry for is something that affects their life, like something that
Right.
is practical. If we're not offering something practical, if we're only selling them a bill of goods that you can have when you die, let's just say,
Yeah.
that's not practical. Like and that's not necessarily what you were talking about, but like it has to. My point is, it has to be practical. Like we have to. It has to affect their life. If not, what are we offering them? Like what?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm I'm with you. To be honest with you, the thing that ticks me off is that nobody calls me Sweet William because my name
True.
is William.
That's true. Yeah.
So from here on out, everybody shall refer to me as Sweet William. No, out of respect for Papa Bill, I'll retire that nickname for him. There was only one
Yeah.
Sweet William Bill Case. So
But you know what? I didn't actually expect to get emotional there. I didn't actually expect to say a lot of the stuff I just said, but it is what it is.
as someone who in this very session has described you as sentimental, it does not surprise me that you cried, especially when talking about the past.
I thought I would have cried earlier, though. Actually, I thought if there was one time in this podcast I would have cried, it was whenever I was talking about why I love Jesus, man.
You were close.
I was getting there.
You were getting there. I could see it.
Yeah. But anyway, we've been going for a little bit now.
We have.
Almost 2 hours, I think.
I just want to say, I guess, before we wrap up, that I still think that people don't make a judgment on me. All right, freaking a. No, I do think that people just, if you know me, give me the benefit of the doubt that my heart's in a good place and my mind's in a good place, and that I may not believe the same things as you, but also keep in mind that you might not understand exactly what I believe. I mean, me and you are still fleshing it out, and I talk to you every single day.
Yeah, I
Like,
still actually don't know 100% what you or I believe.
exactly.
So.
And that's the point I'm really trying to make, is don't make a judgment on what I do and don't believe, because more than likely, if you're offended by what I believe and you're somebody who knows me personally, then you probably misunderstand what it is I do and do not believe. Like, now there are some things that people are just going to disagree with me about, and that's not what I'm talking about. Like, that just is what it is. You're going to disagree with somebody about something. Every person on the earth, you're going to disagree with them about something. Like, we're going to disagree about stuff. But it's not, I guess what I'm trying to say is that you may think I'm a heretic, and that's fine. But really, you would be surprised at how similar of a place we end up. And that's something that me and you are constantly finding in the talks that we have, is that we have wildly different ways of working it out. It means something different to us. But at the end of the day, and this is not to downplay any true differences that do exist, but at the end of the day, the meat of the gospel means the same thing to you as it does to me, I would argue, I think. And so, yeah, just don't pass too harsh of a judgment on me, you know? That's all I'm saying.
Beans.
And if you believe in the Holy Spirit and He will lead us and guide us, then you believe I'll get there anyway. Because one thing you can't accuse me of, you cannot accuse me of, is not trying and not reading and studying and doing all the stuffs. So
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day too. Man, Holy Spirit's gonna work it all out. I can't remember who I was listening to. Actually, I think it may have been the podcast I listened to today, where I was telling you about Chris Green was talking to somebody, and they were talking about Robert Jensen's theology, and I think it was something that they were saying that Robert Jensen had talked about, which is basically like, yeah, man, like I don't know, I might be wrong about all this stuff, but here's what I do know. I know that or at least what I believe. I believe the Holy Spirit. I believe God's real. I believe the Holy Spirit's real, and I believe that whatever future generations are supposed to glean from me, which may be nothing, Holy Spirit's going to work that out. Like if I get anything right,
right,
that's worth anyone hearing and listening to and gleaning and carrying on to the next generation. Holy Spirit's going to work that out. If I'm full of bull crap, then Holy Spirit's going to take care of that too.
right. I mean, that's actually a pretty good, because I noticed that you used the language. I think this is the language I've used as well, but I didn't necessarily emphasize it that way. But I, I prefer the language of think over believe, because, like, at the end of the day, what do I believe? Like, I believe in God. I do believe that there is a God. A lot of this other stuff that we were talking about, this is what I think. You know what I mean? Like, and there is a difference there. Now, I do think that they're pretty closely related, but when you say believe, this is what I believe, it sounds pretty definitive, even though it's not necessarily. Your beliefs can always change, but that sounds more definitive than this is what I think. Like, a lot of the stuff that I'm currently thinking through, like, this is the way I'm thinking about. This is what I think, which leads me to believe certain things. But I like that language better.
Yeah, it does remind me of the very beginning of this conversation about what does it even mean to believe. And I think that maybe I've got a little bit of insight on that just now. Like, I think for me, when I say believe, that I believe something, to me, belief is more than thinking.
Yeah,
There is a difference between believing something and thinking something.
I agree.
Like, there are, like, belief is something that's not just a mental assent to, like, an intellectual assent to something. For me, belief is something that's, like, in here, like, deep down, something you can't really explain. You just know it on a level that's more than just, again, more than just like an intellectual assent to a certain set of doctrines or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think I mostly would agree with that. Like, I think I would maybe use a little bit different, we'll put it a little slightly different, but I think for the most part, I do think that they're closely related. I think that thinking about certain things in certain ways can lead your belief, which maybe ties back to what you were saying earlier about in you can't control what you believe, but you can kind of control the things that do factor into your belief. That's all I mean when I say that. I think that they're pretty closely related. But yeah, I mean, I guess, and that's, I don't know. I don't know that we even want to get into that because like you said, we've been going for a while. I was just gonna, and the only thing I was gonna say is like I do find it. The reason why I said I would maybe put it a little bit differently is, and this is just all my. I've never been anybody else's head but my own, so it's I don't know how it works for anybody else, but like I can't just believe something that doesn't make any sense to me. It has to at least make some sense. Like, and it doesn't necessarily mean I can explain it perfectly, but like I don't know how that works. Like, I don't know. I don't understand. But for me personally, like, I can't just believe something just that makes nonsense to me. You know what I mean? Like, so in that way, I think that they maybe are related a little bit too. But to your point, I don't think that just thinking something means you believe it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I'm picking up what you're putting down. I think. I never know.
you never know about me. I'm a wild card.
Right. Well, we ready to wrap up, dude?
Nobody can ever pin me down. Yeah, I'm done. I'm done.
Okay.
You're listening to Back Pew Convos.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Sal. And this is the podcast God wants you to listen to.
So if you want to remain in God's will, have a sit down
Grab a beverage of your choice.
and have a listen.
You're welcome.